Hi there, this is Jen, and thanks so much for joining me. Today I am sharing a slimline card using a new release from Whimsy Stamps, and the die set that I am using is called Build a Fairy Garden die set. It is a slimline set, but these can be used, like most slimlines, can be used on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card as well. And so in this die set, there is a lots of little pieces, not little, but there are lots of pieces. So you've got several mushrooms, and then you have the mushroom tops, and then there are 4 little fairies, and then there's also a grass border, as well as this little die that cuts out stars. And I'm going to do some watercolor washes to use with the die cuts. And so going into this, I had a specific die in mind when I did the watercolor washes. And so this one right here was originally going to be my background, or my main background, and I ended up changing it up, and this ends up being the mushroom tops. But I'm doing wet on wet, so I've taken a piece of Canson XL watercolor paper, and I have wet that with my paintbrush, and I'm using a fairly thick, I don't remember what size, I apologize, but I'm using a fairly thick paintbrush that holds a lot of water. And so I'm just going over the watercolor paper with that first, and then I will drop in the color. And for this, I'm usually using mainly some blues and purples. And I like the look of this when I use my heat gun to dry those. I like the look of the water spots, especially for what I'm doing for this card. If you don't like that, you can always blot up the excess water that goes on the sides. And that happened, of course, because I didn't tape it down, which I don't normally like to do. But it does end up warping, and you'll get that line of color at the bottom. But a lot of times I like the way that looks, so it doesn't bother me. For this next panel, this is going to be the grass, and I am using some Cosmic Shimmer shakers, and this is lime green. And so this is a watercolor powder basically, and I just activate it using water. And then the remaining panels, I am using the same Mission watercolors for those. And then for all of them, I'm taking some white paint and watering it down a little bit, and then I'm taking my paintbrush and I am adding splatter to all of the panels. And then I'm also using some gold paint from my Starry Nights watercolors and splattering that on all of the panels as well. And here are all of the pieces that have been dried. And so this one is going to be used for the fairies. And then this kind of green yellow is going to be used for the bottom of the mushrooms. And this piece will be the top of the mushrooms. And then this one, it will be the main background. And then we have the green one, which will be the grass. And I will take these pieces and run them through my die cut machine. And then I'm going to make this card a vertical card. And so that grass piece I will be cutting into several layers. And then this is just a dry layout. I usually like to lay it out and then take a picture and see if it's actually what I want. I end up changing this just a little bit, but this is a basic layout. And then I'm going to have that little fairy up near the top, and this is where I'm going to use that little die that cuts out the little stars. And so I place that once and run that through my die cut machine, and then I reposition it and place it again so it just looks like a trail of stars. And then for the sentiment, I am using, I believe the set is called Sentiment Strips. And it says, "May your wishes come true." And I couldn't fit the entire sentiment on the card, and so what I ended up doing was masking off a portion of it and inking it up, and then stamping it onto the paper so that I can get that entire sentiment. And then I'm just going to start assembling the card. So I adhered the grass first with my tape runner, and then for this piece that is on top, I added a little bit of foam so it is a little bit dimensional. And then I'll add all of the tops to the mushrooms or the toadstools. And then I'm just going to adhere these pieces and place them, and then I will set an acrylic block on top to make sure that the pieces fully adhere. And for this little fairy, she's going to be in the grass on the bottom, and I wanted her to have some little stars as well. And so I ran that star piece through my die cut machine again, and then I'm just going to add these super tiny little stars. So it looks like she's blowing some stars. And then this portion right here is the bottom of the toadstool. But I think it would look pretty even without that. I kind of debated about whether I wanted to use that piece or not, but I ended up going with it. And there are 4 little fairy dies, but I ended up only using the 3 of the fairies. So one is in the grass, one is kind of flying at the top, and then there is another that is sitting on the toadstool. And I took a glitter pen to see if I could get that glitter to show through the little stars. Probably would have been better with some glitter paper, maybe, because it didn't really show. And then that extra fairy, I just added that to the inside of the card. And that will complete this card. I actually really love how this turned out. I wasn't so sure how it was going to go, but in the background for the watercolor, it looks, although not intentional, it kind of looks like a waterfall, which I think kind of sets the scene for the whole card. If you're interested in this die set, I will have a link below. As always, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you like this video or found it informative, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to catch you next time.